The neon sign flickered like a dying heartbeat against the black desert sky, casting erratic pools of red and blue across the cracked asphalt of Highway 47. It was 2:47 a.m., the hour when the world felt thinnest, when exhaustion blurred the edges of reality for those still clinging to the road. Inside the Silver Spur diner, the air hung heavy with the scent of burnt coffee and sizzling grease, a sanctuary for wanderers too weary to push on. Truckers hunched over half-eaten plates, their eyes hollow from endless miles, while a lone waitress named Rita wiped down the counter with mechanical swipes, her uniform stained from a shift that started at dawn. The door burst open with a chime that sliced through the low hum of conversation and the distant growl of idling engines outside. A girl, no more than 16, with wild auburn hair tangled from the wind and dust, stumbled in, her chest heaving as if she'd run from the shadows themselves. Harper Lane's face was streaked with tears and grime, her denim jacket torn at the sleeve. "They took my brother!" she screamed, her voice raw, cracking the diner's fragile calm like thunder over parched earth. "Please, someone, help!" He was in the gas station bathroom just a minute, and these men. They grabbed him. "He's only 8. The room froze. A trucker dropped his fork. Coffee mugs clattered against saucers. Rita's rag slipped from her hand, soaking into a puddle of spilled syrup. Eyes turned toward the girl, some wide with shock, others narrowing in wary disbelief. Outside, the desert wind whispered through the scrub brush, carrying the faint tang of gasoline from the pumps across the lot. In the corner booth, 3 figures in weathered leather cuts straightened as one. The iron promise patch gleamed under the fluorescent lights, a stylized iron fist clutching a broken chain, symbol of oaths forged in fire and never broken. Clay North Rayner, 43, and built like the mountains he rode through, paused mid-sip of his black coffee. His salt and pepper beard framed a face etched with lines from too many sunrises seen from the saddle. Beside him, Jack's Echo Harlan, younger and wiry with tattoos snaking up his arms like forgotten rivers, set down his burger. And across from them, Lena Forge Torres, the only woman in their tight-knit crew that night, her dark eyes sharpening like a blade drawn slow. Clay's gaze locked on Harper's trembling hands, clenched into fists at her sides. He saw the panic, sure, the wide-eyed terror of a sister who'd lost her anchor. But beneath it, something deeper stirred in him, a ghost rising from the canyon of his past. 15 years ago, in the chaos of an evacuation during a wildfire that swallowed half a county, he'd been a younger rider, part of a convoy hauling supplies. A kid, no older than Harper's brother, had vanished in the smoke and screams. Clay had searched, sworn he'd find him, but the flames won. The boy's face haunted him still, a promise unkept that carved silence into his soul. Now, here was this girl, her plea echoing that old vow like a thunderclap in the night. Every biker in the diner, though only these 3 bore the iron promise colors, stood up instantly. The scrape of chairs on linoleum cut the air, a unified sound that pulled the room's attention like a magnet. Jax moved first, his boots thudding softly as he approached Harper, hands open and low, voice steady as a low-rev engine. "Hey, easy now. I'm Jax. What's your name, kid? Tell us what happened, every detail you got." Harper's breath hitched, her eyes darting between the strangers. She backed against a booth, but there was no threat in their stance, only the quiet resolve of men and women who'd stared down worse than shadows. "Harper," she whispered, wiping her nose on her sleeve. "Harper Lane. We were at the gas station down the road, Neon Pumps, the one with the busted sign. Milo, he's my brother. He needed the bathroom. I waited outside, looking at the snacks, and then... These 2 guys in a black truck, they came out of nowhere. One grabbed him, covered his mouth. I yelled, but they just drove off toward the old quarry road. Please, he's scared of the dark. He can't." Lena was already at the counter, pulling out her phone with a nod to Rita. "Call the sheriff's line, tell them it's urgent, but don't say too much yet. We need eyes on that gas station." Her voice was calm, threaded with the authority of someone who'd patched wounds in back-alley clinics and stood vigil over lost causes. Rita nodded, fumbling for the dynaphone, her hands shaking as the reality sank in. Clay rose slower, his broad frame casting a long shadow across the checkered floor. He didn't crowd Harper. Instead, he slid into the booth opposite her, the leather of his cut creaking softly. The scent of rain-damp earth clung to him from the ride in, mixing with the diner's oily haze. "Harper," he said, his tone low and even, like gravel under tires. "I'm Clay. North, they call me. We're not just passing through. Iron promise. We ride for folks like you. That promise, it's old, but it's iron. Tell me about Milo. What does he look like? Clothes? Anything stand out about those men?" As Harper spilled the words, Milo's freckled face, his red hoodie with the frayed cuffs, the truck's rusted bumper, Clay's mind raced ahead, not in fury, but in the measured rhythm of a crew that knew chaos too well. Outside, the other Promise bikes hummed to life, their headlights piercing the gloom like beacons. Jax stepped out to check the diner's grainy security feed, pulling up footage from the shared network with the gas station. Lena texted their allied contact, a nurse named Sarah, at the county clinic, who knew the back routes where ambulances dodged prying eyes, and where whispers of missing kids turned into ghosts. The diner clock ticked toward 3 a.m., the first hints of false dawn brushing the horizon. Truckers murmured now, offering nods of respect as the bikers moved with purpose. No bluster, no guns drawn. This wasn't about storming in like outlaws from old tales. It was about the quiet fury of loyalty, the kind that built empires from broken oaths. Clay felt the weight of it settle in his chest, that old canyon filling with resolve. The universe had handed him a second chance, wrapped in a girl's desperate cry. Iron promise wouldn't let it slip away, but as Jax returned, his face grim under the neon glow, Clay knew the threads were tangling deeper. The gas station camera caught a glimpse, the truck's plates obscured, but a logo on the door, some local outfit tied to the pipeline crews digging up the desert for oil veins. Rumors had filtered through their network for months. Kids vanishing near work sites, chalked up to runaways or accidents, paperwork burying the truth in bureaucratic dust. Corruption, the kind that fed on silence. Harper's eyes met Clay's, pleading in the dim light. "You'll find him? You promise?" Clay nodded once, the motion heavy with the echo of vows past and present. "Iron doesn't bend, Harper. We ride till he's home." The engines outside revved in unison, a low roar that vibrated through the floorboards, calling them to the hunt. The desert waited, vast and unforgiving, but so was the creed that bound them. Dawn was coming, and with it the first threads of justice woven from the dark. The convoy cut through the pre-dawn chill like a blade through silk, headlights slicing the inky veil of the desert. Clay led the way on his battered Harley, the engine's rumble a steady pulse against the vast emptiness, while Jax and Lena flanked the rear. Harper squeezed between them on Lena's bike, her arms locked tight around the woman's waist. The air whipped cold and sharp, carrying the metallic bite of sagebrush and distant rain that never quite fell. Behind them, the silver-spur diner shrank to a glowing speck, its neon heartbeat fading as Highway 47 unspooled into the scrubland, dotted with skeletal Joshua trees clawing at the stars. Clay's mind churned like gravel under tires, replaying Harper's words, the flicker of that gas station footage Jax had pulled. The truck's door bore a faded emblem, a coiled serpent over crossed pipes, the mark of Desert Ridge drilling, an outfit that had been chewing up the land for months, leaving scars deeper than any quake. Whispers in rider circles spoke of it. Workers vanishing into overtime shifts, locals turning blind eyes for a cut of the black gold bubbling under the sand. But kids, that twisted the knife. Clay's grip tightened on the handlebars, the old guilt surfacing like oil from cracked earth. That wildfire boy. His name was Tommy, freckles like Milo's, eyes wide in the smoke. Clay had sworn to the flames he'd bring him back. He hadn't. Iron Promise had formed from ashes like that. A brotherhood born of failures turned to steel. They hit the gas station in under 10 minutes, the pump standing sentinel under a sagging awning, fluorescent buzz cutting the gloom. The clerk, a lanky kid with acne-scarred cheeks, was dozing behind the counter when Jax banged on the door. "Open up! We need the full tape! Now!" The kid jolted awake, fumbling keys, eyes widening at the wall of leather and chrome pulling up outside. Harper slid off Lena's bike, her legs wobbling, but she straightened quick, scanning the lot as if Milo might materialize from the shadows. Inside, the air reeked of stale hot dogs and spilled soda, the security monitor flickering to life under Jax's prodding. "There!" Harper breathed, pointing at the grainy freeze frame. Milo, small and defiant in his red hoodie, tugged toward the black truck by a man with a shadowed face, broad shoulders straining a company jacket. The second figure lingered by the door, glancing back, tall, with a limp that caught the light. No plates visible, but the truck's undercarriage dragged low, weighed down or hauling something heavy. Clay leaned in, the screen's glow etching hollows under his eyes. That limp, seen it before. Quarry crews use those rigs for hauling gear. Lena nodded, her fingers flying over her phone. "Sarah's on it. She says the clinic's had an uptick in kids coming in banged up, stories that don't add up. Fell off a bike, you got lost hiking. But paperwork gets rerouted to county social services and poof, they're gone. Tied to those drill sites, maybe indentured or worse, hidden in the labor shuffle." Her voice stayed level, but the edge was there, honed from years nursing the overlooked. Vets with phantom pains, runaways with hollow stares. Sarah, her ally from a roadside aid run 3 summers back, had patched up more than flesh. She'd stitched together truths that authorities buried. The clerk hovered, wringing his hands. "I didn't see nothing. Busy night, folks filling up for the haul to Reno." Clay turned, his presence filling the cramped space without a word wasted. "You got a phone line to the quarry office. Call it. Say a kid's hurt, needs pickup. Stall them." The kid nodded, dialing with trembling fingers, while Jack stepped out to radio the broader Promise network. Their reach stretched like roots under the highways, sister chapters in 3 states, eyes in truck stops and motels, all bound by the same oath. Protect the forgotten. No questions, no surrender. Harper paced the lot, kicking at loose gravel, the desert wind tugging her hair like insistent fingers. He hates trucks, says they eat people. Her voice cracked, but there was fire in it, the kind that forged siblings into shields. Clay knelt beside her, the cool asphalt biting through his jeans. "Milo's tough, like you. We're not chasing ghosts, Harper. We're following tracks." He pulled a worn photo from his wallet. Not Milo's, but a faded snapshot of his own crew from the wildfire days, faces smudged with soot, promises etched in their eyes. It was a talisman, a reminder that oaths didn't rust. The clerk's call yielded scraps. The quarry office grumbled about overtime, mentioned a delivery logged for the East Pit at dawn, but hung up quick when pressed. Lena's phone buzzed. Sarah again. "Got a tip from an ER orderly. Black truck sighted near the old access road, the one skirting the pipeline fence. Kids' clothes in the back, like they were sorting laundry or something shady." The pieces clicked, a dark mosaic forming. Desert Ridge wasn't just digging for oil. They were burying vulnerabilities, turning lost ones into leverage for cheap labor or silence. Corruption's pipeline, flowing under the law's blind spots. Clay stood, signaling the crew. "We split. Jax, take the access road, eyes on that truck. Lena, loop to the clinic, link with Sarah for any fresh intakes. I'll ride the quarry perimeter with Harper." The plan unfolded like a well-oiled chain, no chaos, just the rhythm of loyalty in motion. Engines snarled to life again, taillights streaking red into the murk as they peeled out, dust clouds blooming like smoke signals. As they crested a rise, the quarry loomed, a jagged maw in the earth. Floodlights haloing, chain-link fences and hulking machinery silent for the night shift. Clay throttled down, the vibration humming through his bones, Harper's breath ragged against his back. Far below, a flicker, headlights bouncing on a service path. The black truck's silhouette unmistakable, its low-slung frame crawling toward a shadowed outbuilding. Hope and dread twisted in Clay's gut, the old canyon echoing with a single truth, this time the promise held. But as they closed in, a radio crackle from Jax cut sharp. "North, we've got company. Quarry security's rolling out, armed, and they're not asking questions." The desert held its breath, the first grey light bleeding over the horizon, painting the hunt in strokes of steel and resolve. And now, I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact hour you heard this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel and at what moments they reach you. The grey dawn clawed its way over the jagged rim of the quarry, turning the floodlights into pale ghosts against the vast pit below. Clay eased off the throttle, his Harley purring low as they crested the final rise, the chain-link fence rattling faintly in the wind like a warning whisper. Harper clung to his back, her fingers digging into his cut, the chill air nipping at their exposed skin. The desert stretched out in muted tones, sagebrush silvered by dew, the distant hum of machinery stirring like a beast rousing from sleep. Below, the black truck idled near a cluster of prefab sheds, its engine a guttural mutter, doors ajar as shadows moved within. Jax's voice crackled over the radio again, laced with the tension of a man weighing odds without blinking. "North. Security's 2 rigs strong, pickups with roll bars, lights blazing. They're veering our way, no sirens, but radios lit up like Christmas. Echo out." Clay's jaw tightened, the old scar along his jawline pulling taut. He keyed the mic, voice steady as forged steel. "Hold position, Jax. No engagement. Circle wide. Get eyes on that truck's cargo. Lena, status?" A beat. Then her reply cut through, calm amid the static. "Linking with Sarah now. Clinic's quiet, but she's pulling shift logs. Something's off with the intake forms. Kids listed as transfers to a holding site up north. Forge clear." Clay scanned the terrain. The quarry's bowl a labyrinth of terraced cliffs and conveyor scars, dust devils swirling lazy in the hollows. The air carried the acrid tang of diesel and wet earth, the kind that clung to your lungs after a long ride. He remembered rides like this from the wildfire days, convoy dust clouds masking the fear, oaths shouted over engine roar to keep the crew whole. Iron promise had risen from those embers, a pact among riders who'd lost too much to chance. Protect the line, hold the vulnerable close. Clay had etched it into his soul after Tommy vanished, the boy's small hand slipping from his in the haze. No more ghosts, not on his watch. "Harper," he said softly, not turning, letting the vibration of the bike carry his words. "Stay low when we move. We're not charging in. We're threading the needle." She nodded against his shoulder, her breath warm and rugged. "Just get Milo. He's all I got since Mom." The words hung, a quiet fracture in the wind, revealing the canyon of their own losses. Clay felt it echo his own, but he pushed it down, focusing on the path ahead. The security pickups crested a berm to the east, their tires crunching gravel, spotlights sweeping like accusatory fingers. He gunned the engine just enough to roll forward, hugging the fence line toward a service gate, half hidden by scrub. The truck below shifted, one figure emerging, a broad man with the limp from the footage, clipboard in hand, gesturing to another inside the shed. Through the binoculars Jax had passed over earlier, Clay caught a glimpse. Small shapes huddled in the dimness, red hoodie stark against the gloom. Milo, heart kicking like a starter piston, Clay radioed low. Visual on the kid, 2 adults, possibly more inside. Security closing, flank 'em quiet. The pickups barreled closer, gravel spraying as they fanned out, a driver's voice booming from a mounted speaker. "This is private property. Turn back or we'll call it in." No badges flashed, just the coiled serpent emblem on their doors, tying them to Desert Ridge. Clay raised a hand in acknowledgement, slowing to a crawl, buying seconds. His mind raced through the creed. Justice not in fists, but in exposing the rot, turning silence into reckoning. Lena's update buzzed in. Sarah confirms, 3 kids logged as recovered runaways last week. Routed to a work camp disguised as foster care. Desert Ridge pulls strings with county. It's a pipeline for the overlooked cheap hands for the digs. Clay's blood simmered, not with rage, but the cold burn of purpose. These weren't outlaws. They were threads in a web of indifference where promises to protect crumbled under profit's weight. He veered toward a drainage ditch paralleling the fence, the bike dipping into shadow, Harper's grip tightening. The security rigs paused at the gate, engines idling, one man stepping out with a flashlight beam cutting the half-light. "State your business," he barked, voice edged with the bluster of borrowed authority. From the radio, Jax's whisper. Got a clear shot on the truck, back doors unsecured, one guard distracted, kid visible, moving in on foot. Clay nodded to himself, the plan crystallizing like dew on chrome. "Lena, loop the access road. Draw their eyes east. I'll hold here," she affirmed. Her bike's roar, splitting the air as she peeled away, tail light a red streak, vanishing into the haze. The security man advanced, beam jittering over Clay's position, but the ditch swallowed them in murk. Harper's whisper was fierce against the wind. "They're hurting him, aren't they? Like the stories, kids taken for the oil work." Clay met her eyes in the rearview glimpse, his own steady. "Not anymore. Iron holds." He eased the bike deeper into cover, watching as Jax's shadow slipped through a fence gap, wiry form melding with the terrain like smoke. Years of riding together had honed this. Silent entries, no blaze of glory, just the unyielding pull of loyalty. The security beam swept closer, the man's boots crunching nearer. Clay's hand hovered near the key, ready to rev if needed, but his focus locked on the shed. Jax reached the truck, a flicker of motion, door easing open, small hand reaching out. Milo. Then, a muffled shout from inside, the limp-legged man whirling. Chaos rippled, subtle but electric, as Jax melted back, radio hissing. Kids out, scared but mobile, hiding him in the scrub. Second adult spooked, calling it in. The security man froze, phone to his ear, voice rising. "Intruders at the east fence. Get the foreman." His partner gunned the pickup, tires spinning dust as they converged on the wrong vector, Lena's diversion pulling them like a magnet. Clay's heart pounded, the canyon in his chest filling with light. This was redemption's edge, not vengeance, but the quiet triumph of a promise kept, pulling one lost soul from the dark. But as Milo emerged, small and wide-eyed, clutching Jax's hand in the graying light, a deeper shadow stirred. The shed door banged open, revealing not just guards, but a figure in a crisp shirt, foreman by the badge, phone pressed to his ear, barking orders that carried on the wind. "Lock it down, no leaks, or the whole operation folds." In the Desert Ridge's underbelly exposed, the corruption's vein pulsing. Clay knew this was just the fracture. The real quarry lay in unraveling the ties to county desks and silent officials. Harper slipped off the bike, tears carving clean paths through the dust on her cheeks as Jax guided Milo toward them. The boy stumbled into her arms, burying his face in the red hoodie, safe in the circle of leather and resolve. Clay dismounted, kneeling to their level, the first true rays of sun gilding the scene like a vow sealed. "It's over for now," he murmured, hand on Milo's shoulder, light as a brother's. but his eyes lifted to the converging rigs, the web tightening. Iron Promise's engines would hum on, chasing the truth through the daylight, one oath at a time. The desert exhaled, warm now with promise, as the crew regrouped, shadows fleeing before the light. Yet the foreman's glare from afar promised pursuit, the moral hunt far from done. The sun crested the quarry's rim like a judgment, bathing the scarred earth in gold that chased away the last stubborn shadows. Clay watched Milo huddle against Harper, the boy's small frame shaking not from cold now, but the raw edge of survival. His red hoodie muddied and torn at the hem. Jax flanked them, his wiry build a quiet shield, eyes scanning the converging pickups that skidded to a halt 20 yards out, dust settling like a veil over the tension. Lena's bike roared back into view from the east, circling wide before pulling up beside Clay's, her face set in lines of unyielding focus. The air hummed with the low growl of idling engines, thick with the scent of hot metal and pulverized stone, the desert awakening to the fray. The foreman stepped forward from the shed, his crisp shirt rumpled now, phone still clutched like a lifeline. Mid-40s, with a paunch straining his belt and eyes narrowed against the light, he barked into the device before pocketing it. "You people have no idea what you've stepped into," he called, voice carrying the false boom of authority, laced with the tremor of a man cornered. Security flanked him, two burly types in company vests, hands hovering near radios, no weapons drawn yet, but the threat hung palpable as the chain link between them. Clay rose slowly, his boots grinding gravel, positioning himself between the kids and the line of rigs. No bluster, just the steady weight of presence, the iron promise patch catching the sun like a badge of forgotten honor. "Step aside," Clay said, tone even, carrying over the wind that tugged at shirt tails and whispered through the fence gaps. "Kids coming with us. No one's looking for trouble, just answers." Harper knelt beside Milo, murmuring soft words, her hand stroking his hair, the sibling bond a fragile anchor in the storm. The boy peeked out, freckles stark against pale skin, his eyes locking on Clay with a mix of fear and flicker of trust, the kind born from rescue's raw immediacy. The foreman laughed, short and bitter, gesturing to the shed where dim shapes stirred, other kids perhaps, half seen in the doorway, faces smudged with dirt and uncertainty. "Answers? This is Desert Ridgeland. That boy's a runaway. Social services flagged him days ago. We're just holding him till pickup. You bikers think you're heroes? You're trespassing on private ops." His words dripped with the oil of deflection, but Clay caught the glance toward the truck, the way the limp-legged guard shifted uneasily, clipboard forgotten at his feet. Lena dismounted, her movements fluid, phone in hand as she recorded the scene discreetly, the device's soft click lost in the engine hum. Jax edged closer to the fence, his tattoos flexing as he gripped the wire, voice low but carrying. "Runaway? Kid's got a sister screaming his name half a mile back, and those transfers your nurse buddy mentioned. They line up with the intakes Sarah's pulling, kids funneled to camps that ain't camps. What's the real pipeline here, friend? Labor for the digs, silencing the ones who see too much?" The foreman's face tightened, a vein pulsing at his temple, the corruption's mask cracking under the light. Clay felt the old canyon stir. Memories of bureaucratic walls during the wildfire, forms stamped while lives burned, promises drowned in red tape. Iron Promise had cut through that then, forging paths where none existed, loyalty trumping the system's indifferent grind. Security advanced a step, one rig's door creaking open, but Clay raised a hand, palm out, the gesture universal as a stop sign. "We're not here to burn it down. Hand over the logs, every kid in there, every root. County'll want to see 'em clean." The foreman hesitated, eyes darting to his men, the web of complicity tangling visible now. Whispers from the shed grew, a girl's voice, muffled, pleading for release. Twisting the knife deeper, Harper's head snapped up, her voice breaking the standoff. "Milo's not alone. Let them go. Please." The plea hung. human and piercing, cutting through the bluster like dawn through fog. Lena stepped forward, her dark eyes locking on the foreman, voice threaded with the quiet steel of someone who'd mended more than bodies. I've seen the other side. Kids patched up in ERs, stories stitched with lies. Your operation's leaking and it's not oil. Sarah's got names, dates. One call and it unravels. The foreman's phone buzzed in his pocket, ignored, his shoulders slumping a fraction as the weight pressed in. Clay sensed the shift, the moral fulcrum tipping, not from force, but the unyielding light of truth exposed. This was the creed's power, actions silent, consequences echoing like thunder in canyons. The limp guard broke first, muttering under his breath, tossing the clipboard over the fence toward Jack's. It's all there, shifts, pickups. We didn't. It wasn't supposed to go this far. Bosses from county pushed the quotas. Pages fluttered in the breeze, scrawled with entries, names like echoes of the lost, routed to rehab sites that masked the grind of underage toil under the rigs. Clay caught one, Milo's, stamped recovered. In destination, a holding camp 10 miles north. The foreman swore, lunging for the papers, but security held him back, their loyalty fracturing under the glare of complicity's cost. Enough, Clay said, nodding to Jax, who scooped the clipboard and herded the emerging kids, 4 in all, wide-eyed and clutching meager belongings, toward the bikes. Milo clung to Harper, the group forming a ragged line. The desert wind carrying their soft sobs like prayers answered. Lena radioed Sarah, inbound with extras, prep the clinic, quiet entry, no flags. The foreman's glare burned, but he stepped aside as the gate creaked open under Jax's prodding, the rigs parting like reluctant waves. No shots fired, no chains broken by force, just the quiet unraveling of silence, justice poetic in its restraint. As the crew mounted up, engines stirring to life in a symphony of resolve, Clay paused, meeting the foreman's eyes one last time. Tell your bosses iron promise rides for the overlooked. Next time, it won't be a warning. The words landed heavy, a promise etched in the rising heat, the canyon in Clay's soul filling with the balm of redemption. Not complete, but a step, pulling ghosts toward light. Harper settled Milo in front of her on Lena's bike, his small hands gripping the tank, the family chosen in that moment stronger than blood. The convoy pulled out, dust trailing like a banner of defiance, the quarry shrinking in the mirrors as Highway 47 beckoned back to the diner and beyond. But Clay knew the threads lingered, the county ties, the deeper vein of corruption, snaking through desks and deals. Sarah's clinic would shelter the kids, but the real ride lay ahead, exposing the pipeline, oath by oath, until honor's legacy outlasted the greed. The sun climbed higher, gilding the chrome, as the desert whispered of battles won and those yet to come. Iron held true, bending the world toward justice, one silent act at a time. If this tale of quiet courage stirred something in you, please hit that like button. It helps these stories reach more lost souls in need of light. The convoy thrummed back along the access road, engines weaving a low harmony against the rising sun's glare, dust devils dancing in their wake like fleeting spirits. Clay rode point, the Harley's vibration a steady anchor through the adrenaline's ebb, Milo's rescue still warm in his veins, but shadowed by the clipboard's weight in his saddlebag, pages that mapped a vein of deceit deeper than the quarry's scars. Harper rode pillion behind him now, her arms loose around his waist, Milo sandwiched safely between her and the tank, his small breaths syncing with the rhythm of the road. The other kids, 3 girls and a boy, no older than 12, their faces etched with the quiet hollow of endurance, clung to Jack's and Lena's bikes, makeshift family forged in the heat of the moment. The desert air rushed cool and clarifying, laced with the sharp resin of creosote bushes blooming under the light, washing away the quarry's diesel tang. Clay's thoughts churned like tires on loose gravel, replaying the foreman's fractured glare. The way his bluster crumbled under the exposure. Desert Ridge wasn't a lone rogue. Those logs hinted at a network. County approvals stamped hasty, routes looping kids from streets to camps that masked the grind of off-books labor, all to feed the oil hunger gnawing the land. It echoed the wildfire's aftermath, when aid trucks vanished supplies and officials tallied losses in cold ink, leaving riders like Clay to scrape honor from the ruins. Iron Promise had sworn then, no more overlooked fractures. The oath pulled taut now, a promise resurfacing not just for Milo, but for the shadows it illuminated. They veered off Highway 47 toward the county line, the clinic's unassuming silhouette rising from a cluster of low adobe buildings. Its sign faded to a whisper, Hope's Edge Medical. Sarah waited at the edge of the lot, her nurse's scrubs crisp against the sun-bleached gravel, arms crossed but eyes softening at the sight of the ragged convoy pulling in. No fanfare, just a nod as engines cut to silence, the sudden quiet amplifying the kids' soft murmurs and the distant call of a roadrunner slicing the brush. "Brought company," Lena said, dismounting first. Helping the youngest girl, a waif with tangled braids, steady her legs. Sarah's gaze flicked over them, clinical yet kind, the lines around her eyes deepening with unspoken recognition. "Inside. Quick," Sarah murmured, ushering them through a side door, the air inside shifting to the sterile hush of antiseptic and hushed voices, fluorescent hum overhead, casting long shadows on linoleum floors. Clay lingered by the entrance, clipboard in hand, watching as Jax guided Milo to a curtained exam bed, Harper hovering like a sentinel. The boy winced as Sarah checked him over, minor scrapes from the grab, no deeper marks, but the tremor in his limbs spoke of the unseen. "They said it was a game at first," Milo whispered to Harper, voice muffled against her shoulder. "Hide in the truck, help with the big machines. But it was dark, and they wouldn't let us out." Harper's jaw clenched, her hand stroking his back, the sibling vow unspoken but ironclad. Lena joined Sarah at a side desk, spreading the logs under the desk lamp's glow, pages yellowed and smudged with hurried script. "See here, the transfers, all routed through a shell agency, Desert Youth Outreach. But the endpoints? Coordinates match the drill site's auxiliary camps, kids for grunt work, hauling, sorting waste, kept off the books to dodge inspections." Sarah nodded, her fingers tracing entries, the weight of her own shifts pressing in, nights triaging the fallout, stories of accidents that smelled of coercion. "I've patched half a dozen like this. County social worker signs off blind. Rumors say she's on the take, buried in Desert Ridge donations. It's a closed loop, feeding the pipeline till the vulnerable dry up." Clay stepped closer, the scent of iodine sharp in his nostrils, his broad frame dwarfing the narrow space. He felt the old canyon stir, Tommy's ghost whispering of second chances, but this was broader, a moral quarry to mine. Justice not in isolation, but in pulling the threads till the web frayed. "We need copies, clean ones, and eyes on that social worker. Name?" Sarah pulled a drawer, producing a worn directory. "Evelyn Hart, office in town, but she holds up at the Ridge admin building after hours. Slippery, always has alibis." Jax leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his wiry energy coiled. "We ride quiet. No storming doors. Get her talking. Record it clean. Promise holds in the light, not the raid." Outside, the sun baked the lot, chrome glinting like promises etched in metal. But Clay caught the flicker of movement. A county cruiser idling at the road's edge, too casual to be chance. Harper noticed too, her eyes narrowing through the blinds. "They're watching. What if they take us back?" Clay placed a hand on her shoulder, light as resolve. "They won't. Iron doesn't yield to shadows." He radioed the broader network, voices crackling from sister chapters, a mechanic in Reno with ties to county clerks, a vet in the next town pulling favor with the sheriff's underling. The creed spread like roots, loyalty's quiet web, countering corruption's grasp. Sarah finished with the kids, bandaging a girl's scraped knee with gentle efficiency, her voice a soothing cadence. "You'll stay here till we sort safe homes, no systems, real ones. I've got contacts, families from the rider runs, folks who've lost and understand." Milo looked up, freckles catching the light, a spark of trust kindling. "Like uncles?" he asked Clay, the word tentative but reaching. Clay knelt, meeting the boy's gaze, the canyon in his chest easing a fraction. "Something like that. We ride together now." The moment hung, emotional gravity pulling them closer, redemption's thread weaving through the sterile air. But as they planned the next move, Jax sketching a route to Hart's office on a napkin, Lena syncing with the network for real-time tales, the cruiser's door opened, a deputy stepping out, uniform crisp, hand resting on his belt, no urgency in his stride, just the measured approach of authority probing edges. Clay straightened, the clipboard tucked away, his presence a silent barrier. "Morning," the deputy called through the open door, eyes scanning the group. "Heard about some activity at the quarry. Everything square here?" Sarah stepped forward. "Professional shield intact. Routine intakes. Nothing for your log." The deputy lingered, gaze lingering on the kids, the air thickening with unspoken stakes. Clay felt the tension coil, ethical suspense building like a storm on the horizon. Not confrontation, but the psychological dance of conscience against complicity. Was he in the loop, or just a thread pulled unwitting? Jax's hand hovered near his phone, ready to capture any slip. Harper pulled Milo closer, her resolve mirroring Clay's. The family chosen wouldn't fracture now. The deputy nodded finally, retreating to his cruiser with a tip of his hat, engine fading down the road. But Clay knew it was a feint, the corruption's pulse quickening. Hart's office was the next fracture point, where oaths would test against the system's indifferent weight. As the crew gathered gear, engines humming anticipatory outside, Clay felt the promise solidify, redemption not in isolation, but in the collective stand, honor's legacy carving paths through the moral dust. The desert heat shimmered, mirroring the unresolved fire within, as iron promise geared for the deeper ride, loyalty's engines unyielding against the gathering dark. The midday sun hammered the asphalt like a relentless forge, turning the road to Hope's Edge into a ribbon of wavering heat. Clay throttled steady on his Harley, the engine's deep thrum a counterpoint to the desert's oppressive hush, as the convoy snaked away from the clinic. Milo rode with Harper now, the boy's small form nestled secure between her and the fairing. His earlier tremors eased into the quiet rhythm of motion. The other kids, wide-eyed passengers on Jax and Lena's bikes, clung with tentative grips, the wind whipping their hair like flags of fragile freedom. Sarah's clinic faded in the mirrors, a beacon left behind but not forgotten. Its sterile calm, a temporary harbor in the moral storm. Clay's mind mapped the route ahead, the clipboard secrets burning in his saddlebag like embers waiting to ignite. Evelyn Hart's office squatted in the shadow of the Desert Ridge admin building, a squat concrete bunker off the county square, ringed by chain link and the skeletal frames of idle derricks. The logs painted her as the linchpin, signatures rubber-stamped on transfers, routes that funneled the overlooked into the grind, all under the guise of protection. It twisted the knife in Clay's gut, echoing the wildfire's betrayals. Officials who tallied evacuees like inventory, leaving gaps where lives should have been. Iron promise had vowed then to bridge those voids, loyalty a chain stronger than any bureaucratic lock. This ride was that vow in motion, redemption threading through the dust. They pulled into the square under the noon glare, engines cutting to a low purr that drew sidelong glances from locals nursing sodas on shaded benches. The admin building loomed, its windows tinted against prying eyes, the coiled serpent emblem etched into the entry arch like a warning carved in stone. Jax dismounted first, his wiry frame uncoiling as he scanned the lot, empty save for a lone sedan with government plates. "She's inside," he murmured, checking his phone's map from Sarah's network ping. Hart's logged in for a review meeting. No deputies in sight, but that cruiser from the clinic tailed us halfway. Lena nodded, her dark eyes narrowing against the sun, helping the youngest girl steady her feet on the parched grass verge. Quiet approach. We talk, we record, we walk with truth. No corners cut. Harper slid off, Milo at her side, his hand small in hers as they hovered near the bikes. The square's air hung heavy with the scent of sun-baked earth and faint exhaust, a mocking calm over the undercurrent of stakes. "What if she lies?" Harper asked, her voice low, the fire in her eyes tempered by the weight of her brother's near loss. Clay knelt to Milo's level, the boy's freckles stark in the light, a mirror to the ghosts Clay carried. "Truth has a way of surfacing, like water in cracked ground. We're here to let it flow." The words carried the creed's quiet power, a promise that bound them all. Family chosen in the crucible of crisis. Honor's legacy outlasting the deceit. They moved as a unit, Clay leading with the clipboard tucked under his arm, Lena at his flank with her phone's recorder app live, Jax herding the kids to a nearby bench under a scraggly mesquite, out of direct sight, but close enough for moral weight. The entry door buzzed open under Clay's push, admitting them to a lobby cool and echoing, fluorescent strips buzzing overhead like trapped insects. A receptionist glanced up from her desk, her smile faltering at the wall of leather and resolve. "Can I help?" "Evelyn Hart," Clay said, voice even, carrying the gravel of miles ridden. "We're here about the transfers. Iron promise. Tell her it's urgent." The woman hesitated, fingers hovering over her keyboard, but the patch on Clay's cut, the iron fist breaking chains, seemed to tip the scale. She buzzed the inner office, murmuring into the intercom, and a door swung open down the hall. Hart emerged moments later, mid-40s with a severe bob of greying hair and glasses perched on a nose sharp as suspicion. Her blouse was starched, but her eyes darted, betraying the flicker of a conscience pricked. "What is this? I don't know any iron—" Clay held up the clipboard, pages fanned just enough to reveal the scrawls. "Desert Youth Outreach. Transfers to the camps. Kids like Milo here. Grabbed, rerouted, buried in your signatures." He nodded toward the window, where the group waited visible, Milo's red hoodie a stark flag. Hart's face paled, the lobby's chill deepening as she ushered them into her office. A cramped space lined with filing cabinets and faded motivational posters preaching "Community First." The door clicked shut, sealing the tension like a vault. Lena set her phone on the desk, screen up, the red recording light a silent sentinel. "We have logs, clinic intakes, witness routes. Sarah's pulled the threads, kids patched up, stories that don't hold, your name's on every fracture." Hart sank into her chair, hands folding tight, the air thick with the scent of stale coffee and ink. "It's not. You don't understand. The county's stretched thin. Desert Ridge offers funding, shelters, programs. These kids, they're runaways, burdens. The camps provide structure, jobs to keep them off the streets." Her voice cracked on the edge of defense, but Clay saw the canyon in her eyes, the moral erosion of compromises piled like quarry spoil. Jax leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, his voice a low echo. "Structure? Milo calls it a game till the dark hits, hauling gear at dawn, no light, no out. That's not aid, it's a pipeline. Feeding the digs with hands too small to fight back." Hart's gaze flicked to the window, where Harper met Milo's small smile with a fierce one of her own, the sibling bond a living rebuke. Clay slid the clipboard across the desk, open to Milo's entry. "Sign it clean, release all of them. or we ride this to the sheriff, the press, every chapter from here to Reno. Iron promise doesn't break. We expose. The psychological vice tightened, Hart's fingers trembling as she traced the page, the weight of oaths unkept pressing in. Memories flooded Clay. The wildfire's smoke, Tommy's hand slipping away, officials like her stamping finality on the lost. But this was different. Redemption bloomed in the choice offered, justice poetic in its restraint. Hart exhaled, nodding once. The mask shattering. The funding. It blinds you. I'll sign, pull the files, every one. But the higher-ups, they'll bury me. Her voice softened to confession, the corruption's thread unraveling in the room's hush. Lena captured it all. The recorder's glow steady as the sun outside. Jax stepped out to relay to the kids, their faces lighting with tentative relief. The air outside shifting with the promise of paths cleared. Clay felt the old canyon fill, not with erasure, but with the balm of action, honor reclaimed, one signature at a time. Yet as Hart gathered the files, her phone buzzed insistent, a voice on the line barking low. Contain it. Riders stirring trouble. Send backup. The door rattled with approaching footsteps, the web coiling tighter, suspense ethical and raw. Clay's hand rested on the desk, resolve unyielding. The ride wasn't over. The deeper vein pulsed, demanding one final stand. Outside, engines hummed ready, loyalty's chorus against the gathering storm as the desert held its breath for the oath's culmination. The door rattled again, heavier this time, like the pounding of a fist wrapped in authority's glove. Evelyn Hart froze mid-signature, her pen hovering over the release forms, the ink bleeding slightly into the paper as her hand trembled. Clay's gaze sharpened, the room's sterile air thickening with the scent of impending confrontation. Stale coffee now undercut by the faint, acrid whiff of sweat from the hall beyond. Outside, the engine's hum swelled, Jax's voice a low murmur through the window, rallying the kids with quiet urgency. Milo pressed close to Harper on the bench, his small hand in hers, the red hoodie a banner of survival amid the square's baking glare. Stay put, Clay said to Hart, his voice a low rumble, steady as the Harley's idle. He moved to the door, broad frame blocking the threshold, Lena slipping her phone into her pocket with the recording secured. The knob turned, and it swung open to reveal two figures. The deputy from the clinic, his uniform crisp under the lobby fluorescence, flanked by a suited man from Desert Ridge, tall, with a serpent tie clip glinting like a threat. Their eyes locked on Clay, then flicked to the scattered files on the desk, the moral fracture widening in the light. "This is irregular," the deputy said, stepping forward. His hand resting casual on his belt, badge catching the overhead gleam. "Heard reports of unauthorized access. Hart, you okay?" His tone carried the weight of practiced neutrality, but Clay caught the flicker, the subtle glance to the suited man, complicity's quiet code. Hart straightened, forms clutched like a shield, her voice gaining an edge honed by the moment's clarity. "It's fine, deputy. These folks, they've brought light to some shadows, signatures needed, clean ones." The suited man, admin enforcer, by his polished shoes and the bulge of a company phone, pushed past, his face flushing under the scrutiny. "You can't just waltz in here with accusations. Those camps are licensed, funded properly. Any issues are outliers, paperwork errors." But his words faltered as Lena held up her own copy of the logs, the entries stark under the desk lamp, names, dates, routes that looped innocence into exploitation. The air hummed with ethical tension, the psychological standoff coiling like a spring, not fists, but truths colliding, consciences pricked in the confined space. Clay didn't budge, his presence a wall of weathered leather and unyielding resolve. The iron promise patch, a silent emblem of oaths unbroken. "Errors? We've got kids outside who call it a nightmare. Milo Lane, grabbed at a gas station, funneled through your pipeline. Hart signing releases, the rest unravels from there. County oversight, time to audit your donors. The deputy's eyes narrowed, shifting to Hart, who met his gaze with newfound steel, the canyon of her compromises bridged by the weight of exposure. "He's right," she said, voice steady now. "The funding blinded me. No more." The enforcer lunged for the files, but Jax appeared in the doorway, his wiry form blocking the hall. The kids' faces, peering from behind him like a chorus of quiet judgment. Harper stood tall, Milo at her side, the other children clustering close, the chosen family, bound not by blood but by the creed's pull. The square outside baked under the sun, locals pausing their errands, whispers rippling like heat waves as the scene unfolded. No sirens wailed, no chains clashed. This was justice's poetry, woven from dialogue and dawning integrity, the corruption's vein cracking under the light of accountability. The deputy hesitated, hand lifting from his belt, the radio on his shoulder crackling unanswered. Clay saw the dilemma etch his face, the thin line between duty and the web he'd unwittingly fed. "Call it in if you must," Clay said, tone even, carrying the gravel of roads travelled for the overlooked. "But truth rides faster than badges. Sheriff'll want these logs clean." The words landed, a moral fulcrum tipping. The deputy exhaled, stepping back, his nod reluctant but real. "I'll verify." The enforcer swore under his breath, retreating down the hall, phone already dialing futile defenses, but the damage bloomed. Hart's signatures flowing now, releases stamped with finality, files bundled for Sarah's safekeeping. As the crew emerged into the sunlight, the square seemed to breathe freer. The mesquite's shade, a gentle reprieve on the kids' faces. Milo tugged Clay's sleeve, eyes wide with the wonder of solid ground. "You kept your promise, like a real uncle." Clay knelt, the sun warming his back, the old canyon in his chest filling with a quiet light. Tommy's ghost fading, not erased, but honored in this boy's trust. Redemption wasn't a blaze, but a steady burn, oaths fulfilled in the small acts that echoed large. Harper smiled, fierce and grateful, the siblings reunited, their losses transmuted into strength. Lena radioed the network, chapters converging, copies of the files disseminated like seeds in fertile soil. Press contacts from rider allies, a clean sheriff in the next county ready to probe the donors. Desert Ridge's pipeline would fracture. Exposed in hearings and headlines, the vulnerable pulled from its grasp. No grand raid, just the relentless tide of loyalty washing away the indifferent grime. The convoy mounted up, engines roaring to life in unison, a symphony of resolve vibrating through the asphalt. Clay led the way back to the clinic, then onward to safe harbors, foster homes vetted by promise eyes, families woven from the same cloth of quiet courage. The desert unfolded before them, vast and forgiving now, the sun gilding the chrome like a benediction. Clay felt the weight lift, honor's legacy etched in the miles ahead, promises that survived the dust, family chosen in the fire of trials, justice morale against the corrupted tide. Iron held, bending the world toward light, one ride at a time. As the horizon swallowed the square, the oath culminated, not in silence, but in the enduring hum of engines carrying hope forward. The canyon healed by the simple act of standing true. Thank you for riding this road of iron promises and quiet redemption with us. If these tales of loyalty and moral fire touch your soul, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Join the convoy and let's keep the light burning for stories yet to unfold.